So good evening and welcome, folks. I am very pleased to see all 41 of you here this evening. So thank you for taking time out of, I don't know what it's like where you are, but I'm in Pittsburgh and it's absolutely a beautiful evening. So thank you for taking time away from your gardens, away from your porches, and your backyards to be here tonight for this workshop. Thank you also for your faithful and sometimes difficult work that you do as members of your ministry and personnel committees and the many other ways you inevitably probably serve your community of faith. Tonight's workshop is facilitated by Eun-Joo Park, Todd, McDonald, two of the Pastoral Relations Ministers for the Shining Water Regional Council, and by me, Rob Smith, the Pastoral Relations Minister for the Canadian Shield Regional Council. And as of January 1st, I also serve very limitedly for Shining Waters Regional Council. So just a matter of explanation, Todd lives in Barrie and serves all communities of faith and ministry personnel north of the 407. So places like Midland and Parry Sound, and that's about all I know. Barrie and Aurelia, those kind of places. And Eun-Joo, the reality is, how many PRMs does it take to replace Dale Hildebrandt? Well, the answer to that question is three of us. So Eun-Joo Park, a colleague of mine from Canadian Shield days, now working for Shining Waters and soon to be living in not Shining Waters, she'll be living close to Toronto. She serves all of the communities of faith as a pastoral relations minister that are south of the 407 and east of Yonge Street. And she also does support the communities of faith kind of work as well. I serve all of the communities of faith that are south of 407 and west of Yonge Street. So, it's always a bit of a learning curve as to which one of us is actually serving you. And Kim Udikai, who's been with Shining Waters since the beginning, doing lots of work for us. She's also doing pastoral relations work with the ethnic, linguistic, and indigenous churches. And so Eun-Joo, Kim, and I are what took to replace Dale. And I'm sure we're doing our best to fill the spot that Dale left behind us. And thank you to my co-presenters tonight, Eun-Joo and Todd. And we are your resources as pastoral relations ministers. And please, we're here to help you do your job. So please don't hesitate to contact us. You are not alone in this important work. And so as we come together in this virtual space, we are mindful that we do so from traditional territories and unceded lands of the First Nations people. I come to you this evening, and this is a bit of a lie. I just didn't have time to figure out where Pittsburgh fits in all of that. So this is from my home in Thunder Bay. I come to you from the land of the Asnabic people of the Robson Superior Treaty of 1850 and the home of the Fort William First Nations and the Métis. Upon this land, and long before my people ever arrived, they lived, the indigenous people lived, worked, played, and cared for each other upon this sacred land. We give thanks for their stewardship of the land throughout the ages, and we acknowledge that their history comes at a great expense because of colonization. We honor their spirituality and their teachings as we continue our learnings and our unlearnings. In our acknowledgement, we commit to care for creation and walk together with the First Peoples as siblings in healing, in solidarity, in reconciliation and love. The Shining Waters Regional Council and the Canadian Shield Regional Council are affirming communities. And as affirming communities, we are committed to being a safe place that welcomes and includes all people to gather and participate in the life and work of the Regional Council, regardless of age, race, ability, cultural background, sexual orientation, or gender identity. In this space, all are welcome. And as sort of our opening prayer, I'm actually attending the Festival of Homiletics, which for most people sounds a little bit like hell. To sit through 4 days of 5 sermons every day, so that's like 20 sermons in 4 days, might, for most people, feel like hell. But it's been an absolute inspiration for me and a real great time of renewal. This is my third opportunity to be at one of these, and so I want to share with you a poem that I heard a day or two ago, written by the poet, who is Padraig O'Tuama, who's an Irish poet, but also an activist for peace and quite an amazing speaker and a writer. And so this is his poem called "The Facts of Life." And when he wrote it, he didn't realize that there is an American TV show that was quite popular called "The Facts of Life." And so he tries to explain that it has absolutely nothing to do with that TV show. So here are the facts of life: that you were born and you will die, that you will sometimes love enough and sometimes that you will lie, if only to yourself, that you will get tired, that you will learn most from the situations you did not choose, that there will be some things that move you more than you can say, that you will live, that you must be loved, that you will avoid questions most urgently in need of your attention, that you began as the fusion of a sperm and an egg of two people who were once strangers and may still be, that life isn't fair, that life is sometimes good and sometimes better than good, that life is often not so good, that life is real, and if you can survive it well, survive it well, with love and art and meaning given where meaning's scarce, that you will learn to live with regrets, that you will learn to live with respect, that the structures that constrict you may not be permanently constraining, that you will probably be okay, that you must accept change before you die, but you will die anyway. So you might as well live, and you might as well love. You might as well love. You might as well love. Sorry, I couldn't say that with an Irish accent, but it's a powerful poem, and I pray that we will live and we will live well, and that we will love and love well as well. So let's just begin with a quick prayer. Let us pray. Loving God, thank you for bringing us here this evening. Thank you for this awesome task that you have called us to. Come by your Spirit and guide us this evening as we meet together, as we talk about the roles and job descriptions of our work, and help us to find wisdom and encouragement as we take on this task of supporting our staff and our ministers in our communities of faith. We ask all of this in the Creator's name. Amen. So I turn this over now to Eun-Joo to give us a quick Zoom tutorial.
I don't think that I will have to give you a lot, as we have become very familiar with Zoom. We've been using it since 2019 or 2020, since COVID started. So we are very familiar with all the things, but I'm just going to go over this. We would like you to mute yourself most of the times, but when you need to speak, you just unmute yourself, which is the button on the left side of your screen. On the bottom side, there is an icon looking like a mic. When you are muted, there is a red line across. If you feel like you want to turn off your video, then camera, then you can do the same thing. and there is another icon that looking like a video camera. So you can just click, and then that will close your camera. We are going to use chat as a communication tool. So if you have any questions throughout the our time, you can type your questions in the chat. And we're going to take turns to monitor the chat room to see if we have any questions. If you want to ask any questions instead of typing anything in the chat room, you can raise your hand. So there is on the bottom strip that you will see something's called React. And if you click that, then you will see the different icons, emoticons, and you will see the clap hand, thumbs up, and raise hand. So if you raise hand, I just did that, and then that will put you the first in queue, so we will know that you have something to say. Okay, Todd did that too. And so, and then you can lower your hand yourself also. I think that's all I need to say about Zoom here. Do you have any questions? That's good. All right, then I will give this to Todd, that he's going to explain the purpose of the this workshop.
Thank you, Eun-Joo. That's great. Again, welcome everyone. I'm going to just talk about our 3 goals. So our overall purpose is that we're assuming that you are, even if you're not, we're assuming that you are a brand new M&P member. This is M&P 101. This is our opportunity to introduce you in a very short 2 hours to the work of the M&P Committee. And of course, we can't do it all in 2 hours, but we're going to try our best. The 3 goals that we have for this time is for you to be able to understand the difference between being a regular member, involved in your church, and the difference that's there between that and being a M&P committee member. They are different. You have some different hats on. We're going to hope to help you understand the difference between being a regular member and when you are an M&P committee member. The second goal we have is that you'll be able to identify 2 helpful images for the role of being an M&P member. And we're hoping by the end of our workshop that you will be able to choose one of those images that you're going to take away and say, this is going to be my contribution. This is the way I want to be an M&P member, and not one is better than the other. It's just what feels best in you. And the third thing is that by the end of our time together, that you'll be able to apply a communication strategy that supports and values your staff. And that's sometimes, especially if there's a time of conflict, we need to work hard at having conversations that are helpful and healthy. And we're going to show you how you do that. And we're going to have some fun with that tonight too. So those are our 3 goals for our workshop. And so I'm going to turn it over to Eun-Joo now, and she's going to talk about a little bit of homework you had. I'm just going to pin you here.
Homework. The homework went out with the registration, and you may have had a time to look it over. You may not have. That's okay. We are all here to look it over again. So we are going to review this homework that's given to you by a poll. So Todd is going to send you the poll here, and you are going to answer it. Todd, you want to take over and explain how they do it?
Sure, I will. So hopefully you can all see the poll. Eun-Joo, can you see the poll in your spot? Excellent. Thank you. So there are 7 responsibilities that an M&P member has as part of an M&P committee. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to take one at a time, and you mark, yeah, I'm comfortable with that. I think I can help out with that. Or no, I'm not ready for that. I don't feel ready for that yet. So the first one's like being available for consultation and support for matters involving staff. So you're available for consultation. You're a good listener. Is that something that you feel that you can contribute? You can say, yes, I feel comfortable with that. Or no, not yet. Take a minute to mark one of those. And while you're working away at that, the second one, overseeing the relationship of staff and congregation members. So you're there to make sure that the relationship is strong between your staff, minister, and congregation members. Yes, I feel comfortable with that. You might have done that in your corporate life or in your work life. Go ahead and mark that. How's everyone doing? I don't see many clicks. Keep going there. Keep clicking. Good.
Todd, may I ask, do you want us to submit as we answer or at the end?
No, right as I go through them, go ahead and click your answer. Thanks, Ken, for that clarification. Good. The third one there is regularly reviewing working conditions, responsibilities, and position descriptions. You might have done that work as an employee, a manager, HR person. Maybe you've done position descriptions before.
Excuse me. I hit
Sure.
submit and the form just disappeared.
Me too. Yeah, me too.
Oh, so you.
I think we
Likewise.
submitted again.
Likewise.
Oh, did it? You
Yep.
went down to the bottom and pressed submit?
Yep.
Yeah, you said we can submit as we go along. So I did 2 questions and submit.
Oh, well,
me too.
okay. Well, we'll just keep going. Hang in. Don't anybody else do it, okay? Just mark yes, I feel comfortable, or no, not yet. But you can follow along, folks. I'm going to read them out. Making any recommendations needed as a result of these reviews to the church board. So you might have been somebody who has been on the church board. You're comfortable presenting there. A lot of people interesting. Revising position descriptions. So maybe there's some change to your staff's position description. Do you feel comfortable doing that? Say yes or no. I don't know how to do that. Number 6, conducting annual performance reviews with resources from the United Church of Canada. Are you comfortable with that? Or maybe not yet. Mark that one of those. Yes, feel comfortable, or no, not yet. And finally, ensuring church staff make use of opportunities for continuing education that they have available. So are you encouraging? An encourager? Yes, or no, not yet. I don't know how to do that yet. Okay, so you can press submit now. As soon as you're done. And I'm going to share the results. And here's the results. And you should be able to see that now. And over to you, Eun-Joo. Thanks.
Yeah. So what do you see? It's being available for consultation and support for matters involving staff. Most of you said you feel comfortable. And overseeing the relationship of staff and congregation members. Just a little of half of you said you feel comfortable, and just about 37% says not yet. Okay.
I think that's really encouraging, because
Mm-hmm.
that's some of the hard work of M&P is helping relationships be strong.
Yeah, and the 70% of you said regularly reviewing working conditions and responsibilities and position descriptions. You said you feel comfortable, and 30 says not yet. That's
great.
pretty good too. Yeah.
Mhm.
And just about the same ratio that said comfortable making any recommendations needed as a result of this reviews to the church board, the governing body. Yep. And less percentage says not yet. And the majority, 83%, said that comfortable revising position descriptions. And just a little over half said comfortable conducting annual performance reviews with resources from the UCC, and 44% says not yet. I mean, you will get there. This is your first time being M&P, so that's why we're here also. And 72% says comfortable ensuring church staff make use of opportunities for continuing education that they have available. And 28% says not yet. Any comments you would like to make? You can unmute yourself, either unmute yourself or you can put something in the chat.
Oh, sorry, this is Rob on chat.
Yeah. Beverly says, I noticed that as the questions proceed, fewer people answered each one, so that the last three questions only have 40% response. And that's partly because some of you submitted before you needed to submit. But I do think the tasks get harder as we go along. And so it is, some of those are a little bit harder to do, and we're not as comfortable. We love to be there to support. Sometimes the other parts of the job can be a bit of a challenge.
Mm-hmm. But if you want to say it now that you missed the opportunity to do the poll, then this is an opportunity for you to say it. Yes.
And Vicki asked the question, how will we know when continuing education courses are available for staff? Do you want to answer that, Eun-Joo, or Todd?
I mean, are you talking about the lay staff or ministry personnel?
Maybe I could speak to ministry personnel. So there are opportunities.
Go
ahead, Vicki.
Okay,
yeah.
This is pertaining to one of the questions. If we're comfortable encouraging staff to take I'll turn my camera on as well, to take continuing education courses. Happy to do that, and because I'm new to this, I'm not sure, like, how will we know what's available, what's out there, so that we can encourage and support the staff to take up these courses?
It's a great question, Vicki. Maybe I'll take this one on. For ministry personnel, there are things that come across their desk periodically for continuing education. And for lay staff, not all lay staff have continuing education budgets, but maybe your admin assistant does. And there are national and regional groupings of professional administrative assistants that gather these people and help support each other. So get a hold of us if your staff isn't not aware of some of the opportunities for Con Ed. Thanks, Vicki.
Yeah, sure.
That seems like all the questions that I can see in the chat.
Okay, so we're ready to move on. Maybe we'll move on now to you, Rob.
Okay, thanks, Todd. Thank you, Eun-Joo. Can we get rid of this poll?
Oh, is it not? Is it still there?
It is in mine, so I just deleted it, so it's fine.
Good.
Hopefully, I didn't.
No, you're fine.
Okay, great. So the next thing we want to talk about is dual relationships and all of those responsibilities. Dual relationships are one of the hardest parts of being a member of an M&P committee. We usually come to this role from a place of active involvement in our church. and sometimes from a previous relationship with the staff as a church member. As a member of the Ministry Personnel Committee, you're also a member of the community of faith. This is the tricky part of this job. And sometimes you relate to an employee or a minister from your role as a member of M&P Committee, and sometimes you relate to them as a church member and even sometimes as a friend. For instance, the music leader, you relate to them as the employer or them as an employee, but sometimes you're also a member of the choir. And so, some days you're wondering, what role do I play and how do I handle this dual relationship? And one of the ways to do that, and this is where I'm going to try and share a cute little picture we have. And I love this little picture. It's just, is to ask yourself, what hat am I wearing today? So begin every conversation, every email, every letter, every card by thinking about which relationship are you coming from. This means taking the time to sort out which relationship you're coming from, because sometimes they overlap, and sometimes you really need to be clear to the person you're speaking to what hat you're wearing, because they know you also as M&P member, but also as a member of the church, and sometimes even as a friend. So you begin by sort of saying, I need to talk to you about some feedback and your sermon. Well, that would be your M&P hat. I need to talk to you about my daughter. Well, that's a very different hat, a personal hat. Conflict, of course, makes it harder. The minister and the choir director are embroiled in a conflict. You care for the minister, but you also care for the choir director, and you also care for your church. So it takes time to sort out how those relationships work. Not being aware of our dual relationship roles can lead to a misunderstanding that can complicate both of our roles as a member of the congregation and as an M&P member. Being aware of our dual relationship roles will put both of you and your employees at ease, since they don't have to guess at which hat you are wearing. So I send it over now to Eun-Joo to set us into breakout rooms. So over to you, Eun-Joo.
Yes. Just a minute, Eun-Joo. Before we go into breakout rooms, I'm just going to introduce this next part. So just hang on there for a minute.
Sorry, Todd.
That's okay. No, that's great. Thank you, Rob, for doing that. Yeah, those dual relationships. Which hat are we wearing is a really important thing, and that it points to something that I think we intuitively all know, that the church as a workplace is very different from from a secular workplace, maybe where you have worked in your life. The church is different. We know that, but I wonder if we can articulate how the church as a workplace is different from other workplaces in the world or in your community. And so what I'd like you to do is we're going to put you into a breakout room, and we'd like you to talk in groups of 3, talk about what are the differences that you see between church as a workplace and other workplaces. How is the workplace called church and your staff that are working there, how is it different than other workplaces? And I want you to keep track. So when you come back, that you'll be able to type into the chat, or that you'll be able to unmute and share your group's answers to that question. So now, Eun-Joo, are you ready to put folk into a breakout room? Is everyone?
I am ready, and we're giving them 10 minutes, right?
10 minutes in your group. So please ensure that everyone has a chance to speak in your group, and ensure that you come back with some of the answers from the group, that maybe assign one person to be your spokesperson.
Okay,
and can you repeat the question? You keep cutting out. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. So I'm going to put it into the chat. 1 second. here we go. What are some of the differences between church as a workplace and other workplaces? You have 10 minutes. So I want you to find that unmute button if you want to say something, or you can start to tap away into the chat. What are some of the things you talked about?
My partner was Catherine, not the Catherine that I see on the screen right now, but she had a different situation than I'm fairly new to the city of Barrie and the church.
Yes.
But she was talking about when there's personal friendships.
Okay. So good. We'll talk about that. So people are still rolling in. Find your unmute button, or you can start typing away in the chat, and Rob will bring us what you type away in there. But we'd like to know what you talked about. And Judy, we're going to come back to you. What the difference between church as a workplace and workplace that you might have been at. So Judy, will you share, now that everyone's back, what's the difference for you?
Judy?
I don't see a huge difference, actually, because I'm fairly new to everything here.
Okay.
So I don't have a lot of I've got friendships, but not long-term friendships. So I don't see it as a big problem at the moment. But I can understand, after talking to Catherine, that it could be. Okay.
What about others? Anybody else? If you can raise your hand, I'll invite you, or you want to. There's that raise hand with the heart, says react, because you're on 3 screens on my screen and I can't see your face. So there, I see Ken Clark. Go ahead, Ken.
Well, I'm in room 11, so I'm not how far down we are in terms of rooms with the number of people of 54 participants. But the 2 individuals and myself came up with a difference, I guess, between corporate and church, being that as a religious and faithful community, we have to be gracious and respectful. A little different than, I guess, the corporate world that can be extremely cutthroat, profit-driven, results-driven. Mm-hmm. And we think that, there's a real need for those in the church to respect, what that institution stands for, or what that faith community is all about.
Thank you, Ken. That's excellent. That's excellent.
And I think that has to be, expressed, and it has to be through the congregation. Mm-hmm. We also said that it's a safe place, but we have to be honest. When there is conflict, or where there are situations, you have to resolve them. You can't let them fester. You've got to be honest with staff. You've got to be honest with the groups that are involved. And, as was mentioned earlier, that if there is a conflict between the music director and the minister, or whatever the case may be, you have to resolve it. You got to be straightforward, honest, resolve it, move on. And deal with it with respect and graciousness, because you are a faith community. It involves a lot of people.
Good. Thanks, Ken. Ken, I'm going to hold you there. We got a lot of other people that want to get in.
Sure.
So I'll hold you there. Thanks. Hey, Rob, there's a chat, and then we'll come back to the next raise hand.
Okay.
Thanks, Ken.
This is from Laura. She says more emotional, difficulty addressing situations which may be conflict or deliverables, blurred lines between personal and professional, more support and educational opportunities, have to be cognizant of each person's situation rather than the outcome only, feeling awkward and ill at ease because of a new role in long relationships. Yes, that's true. Hard to measure performance when sitting beside them in church the next day. Many stakeholders and relationships, many moving pieces. I used to say when I was a minister that I had 80 bosses, and that's very true. Difficulty in guiding people to roles where they can employ their strength.
Excellent. Thank you, Rob. Hey, Karen, you're next. You got your hand up there. Will you unmute and tell us about, and just maybe we'll stick with one thing, because we got a lot of people with hands up. Go ahead, Karen.
Yes, we had somebody that was new to our to the M&P, and she said she was quite naive of the staff issues and how challenging they can be. That it's hard when you've got somebody you've got all of those bosses, and all of those bosses are making a financial commitment to your paycheck, and that's very difficult. And there's just not the professional model often that it can be difficult because sometimes the people who are the volunteers don't have an HR background and are struggling to know how to best guide and lead the minister and the congregation to the best outcomes.
Thank you, Karen. That's a really good point. That how difficult it is as people who don't have that HR training. Usually in the corporate world, there are people with that training. So thanks, Karen. I really appreciate that. Hey, Rob, what about another chat?
Let's see. Being new in a church is awkward. Giving feedback and conflict resolution. I thought churches were conflict free. This is someone quite new. That was from Ian. So yes. Oh yeah. There's no conflict in the church, Ian.
God bless you. Listen, where 2 or 3 are gathered, there's Jesus and conflict. So and I love that line. And we'll hear a little bit more about that later. But yes, conflict is actually a healthy thing. It can spark wonderful creativity, but we just can't let it get too heated. If it gets too heated, then it can become a negative thing. So thank you for that, Ian. Diane, you go ahead, unmute yourself and tell us what your group talked about.
Well, we started out by saying that the minister deals with a lot of people with different backgrounds and different expectations, but then we thought that was probably the same as most workplaces. So we thought that was a similarity. But then I'm a teacher, and so the people that you're working with are in the same building as you. And so we thought that for ministers, most of the people that you're working with are not in the same building.
Yeah.
And so that's tricky to balance. Your day can be interrupted quite a bit. Your work week is definitely shaped differently, and the minister is only visible to the congregation 1 or 2 days a week. Yeah. Whereas if you're at work, Monday to Friday, as I said, all the people you're there, you're seeing them, on the days you're there. And interestingly enough, at our particular church, our minister retired at the beginning of April. We have a new minister starting beginning of July. I'm the interim music director. We have a new music director starting the beginning of June. The office administrator and I have been organizing the music for the services for April, May, and June. And
right.
So when I said that most of the minister's work is invisible to the congregation, like choosing the hymns, you just go to church and, all the music happens and
yep.
the hymns are sung. Choosing hymns is hard work.
It is hard work.
Goodness.
Thank you, Diane.
Trying to pick a hymn that the words, this is the topic of the sermon. Okay, what hymn is going to follow the sermon? Oh, we really like this one. Yeah, but look at the text. That doesn't match the sermon.
Yes.
It takes a long time to figure that out.
That's great. I'm going to hold you there, Diane, because I want to get this last hand and keep to our schedule. But I'm really thankful that you're experiencing you're explaining about how so much of what our staff does is unseen. And I always said that 90% of people see about 10% of what I did when I was in pastoral ministry. So, Melanie.
Hi, everyone. We talked about how there's actually some pretty significant differences from other organizations in terms of the church structure, the role of committees, the fact that, there are a number of lay leaders who are volunteers, the fact that we are volunteering. Mm-hmm. So this isn't our day job either. But then on the positive side, and I think somebody already mentioned this to some degree, is the fact that all of us share the same values and in a very broad way, because we're all part of this church organization. And surely that can help to, to deal with the conflict that you were just talking about, Todd. And then the other thing we spoke about is just the role of the congregation and how we're having to balance, like there's not really a comparison between a congregation and customers, for instance. It's just a completely, more intimate group that is represented at the church that we need to be mindful and that we're ultimately part of.
Thank you. That's wonderful, Melanie. Thank you so much for that feedback. I know there's a couple more chats, Rob, but I'm also looking at the clock and we need to move on. Is there anything is there one thing that really catches your eye, Rob, before we move on?
Interesting, that staff have less structured days due to how often communication can be last minute and sudden emergencies. The changingness of a job, the working in a church can evolve quite quickly in a day. So yeah, that's and I'll just look at the last one just here. Talking about hierarchy and where we may serve on several committees, worship together and not have a firm hierarchy. And in dealing with a minister, there may be some issues or angst dealing with someone who ministers to you. Yeah, that's.
Thank you. Okay, well, folks, we're gonna have some fun now, and we're gonna do a role play. We have a minister and a musician who are having a conflict. That never happens. It never happens. But this is our take on a struggle between a minister and a musician, and the M&P Committee is coming in to hear and to deal with this situation and listen to how the M&P deals with it, and maybe what's the issue that is presenting itself. Also, what's the issue with the M&P chair? Listen for that as well. So Eun-Joo is our M&P chair. Rob is our minister, and I am the musician. Now, just let me get everyone pinned and ready to go, and then we can start in. Over to you, Eun-Joo.
Okay. So I am M&P chair. I have sensed and also listened to a few people saying that there is a conflict between our minister Rob and the music director Todd, and listen to the first part of the conversation, or Act 1, for what the issue is. So how did you feel, Todd? How did you feel about the worship service yesterday?
Eun-Joo, we're just not going to have good worship services until Reverend Rob lets me do my job as music director. Eun-Joo, I'm just getting sick and tired of constantly having to negotiate with him about decisions that are clearly mine to make. It's totally driving me bonkers.
Can you tell me a bit more about what is happening here around the way you relate to Rob?
Well, he doesn't know the first thing about music. That's the first thing. And yet he's constantly questioning my choices of hymns and anthems. And holy Hannah, he's got to be the most stubborn person I've ever met. I mean, surely you've noticed that as well. Like 2 weeks ago when we were celebrating Peace Sunday, he wanted us to sing Onward Christian Soldiers, the most militaristic song there is. Does he have any clue of what's going on around him? Like, sometimes I get the impression that he's really just out to embarrass me.
So the issue is around who picks the music for worship and how that fits with the worship theme.
It's not in question. It's my job to pick the music. It's clearly in my job description. could you please let Rob know that he needs to do his job and let me do mine?
So, Todd has shared his frustrations with me as M&P chair. What am I going to do next? How can I bring this issue to the minister, Rob, with a view to being a trusted confidant for both of these employees of the church?
Yeah, just let me pin Rob here.
Sorry, I just need to.
So, Rob, yeah.
It's
So,
over
Rob,
to me. Yes, Eun-Joo.
how did you feel about the worship service yesterday?
I think we're going to wait a minute, aren't we? Or are we doing Act 2 here?
You have time to do it.
Oh, okay. Okay, never mind. I thought I had another thing to do. Okay. Well, awful. Thanks to Todd's music choices. Did you see how frustrated people were trying to sing that crazy new song he wanted us to sing? Oh my God.
Oh, I know. I don't know where he gets these ideas. I just tuned out, so to speak.
Well, you're the M&P chair, Eun-Joo. You should talk to him and tell him to stop this nonsense.
And I did. And he blamed it all on you.
Oh, is that so? What did he say?
Well, he thinks you're really stubborn and that you don't know the first thing about music. He thinks you are actually just out to embarrass him.
Well, is that a fact? Well, I'm meeting with him today. I'm just going to give him a piece of my mind.
Oh, well, good luck with that. Try not to throttle him.
So what just happened in that conversation? What do you think is going to happen next? And I know that none of your churches have ever experienced something exactly like that. In all my 20 years of ministry, I'd be lying if I said that. So what may have just happened in the relationship, and what may have just happened to the relationship with the M&P chair and the music director?
We have a raised hand, Rob.
Oh, we have a few raised hands. Do I? Okay. Well, Christina, give me your thoughts here.
Okay, the M&P committee just aligned with the music people. No, with the minister. And oopsie. And the minister and the M&P need to talk to, minister and the music director need to talk and be sort of overseen by the M&P, not take choices.
Thanks, Christina. That's a
Hey,
good
Rob.
observation. Yes,
Rob, before we go to the next hand, Melody says confidentiality was broken.
Yes.
That too. Yeah.
Yes.
Go ahead. Tracy,
unmute yourself and share your thoughts.
Well, I agree with the thoughts definitely so far. And she was even gaslighting, saying like, don't you think that is like, she wasn't trying to calm the situation. She was getting them all wound up. And I think rather than go right to him, she should have spoken with her other committee members who would have offered a different perspective and what should be next steps.
Thank you, Tracy. Ken.
Well, I certainly agree with some of the comments already made. I think the M&P chair compromised her position, obviously, and it's not fair on the minister or music director to resolve the issue. It's got to be as we said earlier, there's got to be some respect here. It's got to be gracious, and although there could be differences of opinion, depending however the music director is in his position or her position, it's certainly got to be a collaboration in putting together a worship service. So,
thanks, Ken. And finally, Pat. You have your hand up, Pat. So, Pat Edmonds.
I was concerned from the very beginning when the M&P chair said she listened and heard that in a conversation that there was some conflict. I don't think M&P committees act on conversations that they just happen to hear. That's not the way things are done. And I think some of this conflict should have and could have been resolved and never have happened if both parties involved had very clear job descriptions. I go to a variety of different churches all the time, and some of them I go to, the music director chooses all the hymns, whether they're the ones I want or not. In other places, it's wonderful collaboration between me as the visiting preacher and the musician. And I just always have to ask in advance, does your musician choose the hymns, or may I make suggestions, or would he or she prefer that I choose them? So things have to be really clearly written down about whose role it is.
Excellent.
Thank you, Pat. That's a great insight on that. And Cheryl writes, complete erosion of trust in this situation as well, just not handled professionally. We want to step back a little from that scenario. We'll take another stab at it in a few moments, but we want to sort of unpack the two phrases that we're using tonight as of your role as M&P. And the first image that I want to unpack for you is the trusted confidant. And so a trusted confidant is someone who listens without judgment and offers advice only when solicited. A trusted confidant is someone that offers intimacy and support, providing a place where an employee can share their concerns and brainstorm ideas and possible solutions to issues in a safe environment. A trusted confidant is a kind of a sounding board for frustrated music directors to kind of chat, to talk about their frustrations. It's to provide feedback that is consistent and clear as well. And as we think about being a trusted confidant, we want to talk about issues of confidentiality. And we already saw that in this story, that in some ways the M&P chair broke confidentiality. Some of the things that the music director had said to her probably were not things he wanted to pass on to the minister. And so it's ensuring that private information is not disclosed to others inappropriately or out of context. And the other thing I like is, we practice a no fixing, saving, or advising or correcting each other as we are in these kind of relationships. I always like that phrase, what is said here remains here. Often we say what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, but in some ways what happens in an M&P conversation should stay in an M&P conversation unless we've asked permission. Always good to check so that you're clear. Do you want me to act on this or not? And how do you want me to act on that? And of course, there's always a limit to confidentiality. If someone is in danger to themselves or to another, you must act, and any concerns related to a child. But the other thing that we want to talk about in terms of a trusted confidant is a concept of transparency. We need to make sure that our methods and our procedures are clear and open and can be questioned. People have a right to know about the systems that affect their well-being. People will have a say in how the information is used and why it's needed. And so transparency provides an even playing field. And secrecy that we sometimes get involved in is the opposite of transparency, withholding information for the purpose of control. And it sets up a power dynamic of insiders, those who know, and outsiders, those who don't know. That's the trusted confidant that we're called to be. I'm going to ask Eun-Joo to talk a little bit about what it means to be a trusted supervisor.
I can only imagine giving feedback to a staff person or minister is one of the most difficult tasks of M&P. This is more daunting than saying something. It was a good sermon at the end of the service when on your way out. So sometimes fear of possible reactions make M&P committees shy away from having feedback conversations. But your role, one of the roles that M&P has is the supervisory role. And how can you be a trusted supervisor? So what would the trusted supervisor will be like? It's less intimate, yet still committed to caring for the employee, and provides clear direction about job description, and addresses concerns quickly and appropriately, and offers helpful and consistent feedback, and knows how to access policy and procedures of the United Church of Canada. And there are 3 principles of giving feedback. And the first one is feedback is a regular practice, and it just doesn't happen when there is a problem. So positive feedback appreciation is an important counterpoint when difficult feedback needs to happen. About 90% positive to 10% constructive feedback. And the second principle is focus on the issue, not the person. It is important to distill the feedback you want to give to make sure it's about an objective issue that can be worked on. And the third principle is, does the issue concern the staff person, or does the feedback belong with the church committee? And those are the principles when you can carry when you give feedback to your staff and the ministers. Okay.
Can I ask, I'm sorry to interject, I'm wondering if is it possible that Eun-Joo and Rob, we could have the points that you've raised about being a confidant and the ones that you just mentioned, Eun-Joo, about being a supervisor?
Yes,
Sure.
yeah, we're recording this workshop and it's going to be available to you. We'll be sending you the recording, so you have it and you can share it with your other M&P members if they wish. So,
But do you have a PDF? Like I'm not sure I'm going to go back to a 2-hour recording to find out this list of items to remember.
Yeah,
okay.
I can send mine. What about you, Rob? We can put it together and then send it out.
Yeah. We can have it sent out or I can just do this, I think.
Thank you so much.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for raising that. Yeah. So, what we're the trusted confidant, the trusted supervisor, the common denominator there is the word trusted. The word trusted. And that's something about a relationship that is earned over time. Once people experience the M&P person as reliable, as very truthful, as genuinely interested and respectful, without agenda, that's something that will be very powerful, is that word trusted. So using in the chat, I would like you to actually this is you, Eun-Joo. Sorry, this is you.
That's okay. You can take over.
I don't want to take over. So I'll pin you. I'm on the chat here. So I'm going to get going here. Sorry.
That's okay. So using the chat, if you had had to use one word to describe trusted confidant, what would it be? One word. trusted confidant is da 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 da.
Oh, one word.
Yeah, one word, da. One dot. Okay, so Todd is going to monitor the chat.
Yeah, so we're seeing safe, trusted confidant listens.
Oh,
The trusted confidant is not taking sides; they're neutral.
okay.
They have a caring, supportive. They're a mediator. They're a listener. They're respectful. They're open-minded, honest. Listener. Thanks, Catherine. They're gracious. Thanks, Ken. They're solid. Oh, nice. Objective listener who respects confidentiality. They're empathetic. Empathic. Empathic or I think that's right. Empathetic. Yeah, they feel. Private. A sounding board. Calm. Oh my. Self-aware. Patient. Trusted. Thanks, Ian.
Okay. Yeah.
That's
Okay,
great.
let's move on to the next
so
question. Yeah.
I'm going to put the little stars in here.
Yeah, you could do that.
There
So
we go.
now, if you had one word to describe trusted supervisor, what would that be?
Truthful. A little bit harder. One word to describe approachable. Thank you. Fair.
Fair. Yeah.
Respectful. Honest.
Yeah, honest.
Appropriate, I think. Calm.
Approachable.
Sorry, that's what it is. Approachable. Transparent. Reasonable. Good word. Yeah. Understanding. Consistent. Helpful. Knowledgeable. Yes, you talked about policy. Compassionate. And sometimes when we don't know policy, the United Church, you call your pastoral relations minister. They're honest, available. Thanks, Nancy. Sense of humor, beautiful. Self-regulated, self-awareness again. Objective and working in the interest of improving the staff's concerns and issues. Thanks, Barb. You got the most words. Supportive. Good. Wow, what wonderful feedback. And empathetic. Yeah. Wonderful.
Oh, that's very good. Thank you very much. Those are the helpful words. Very appropriate. So I'm gonna pass this to Rob, and he's going to talk about crunch model, pinch and crunch model.
You're muted, Rob.
Okay. I do have a slide that I'm just going to show you as well, just to get started on that. So conflict is inevitable. The thing about our role play is that probably every one of you have had some experience with a conflict like that. But conflict is inevitable in this work. It's part of being in relationship. Conflict is actually, I think, something not to be afraid of. It's actually a sign that something is happening. The absence of conflict does not necessarily mean that things are good and healthy. It can also mean that nothing's happening or apathy. So it's important to acknowledge conflict and find ways to address issues quickly and directly. One of the models that I stumbled upon early in my ministry was the pinch-crunch model, and it has served me well over the years. It's a simple model, but it's fairly intuitive. When you begin a new relationship, you begin by gathering information and sharing data and ultimately clarifying expectations. This eventually, hopefully, leads to some role clarity and stability. This is where having clear job descriptions, something we've said before, we know what the expectations are, and we get into a bit of a groove. of working together. We know what we expect of each other. And then a pinch happens. Now, you know what a pinch is. It's just a sort of, pulling of a little sting, just a little bit of a sting, just, when it happens. A mosquito bite in some ways. One mosquito bite, you're not in the forest. Something that makes you ask, what just happened there? I felt like I just got pinched. That didn't feel right. Now, they can come in many different forms, and they are different for every person. But intuitively, something is just not right. It's a pinch. Now, a pinch represents a disruption of your shared expectations. A kind of snide comment across the board table one night. A pinch is something that is done or not done that violates one of our expectations or assumptions. Pinches kind of affect us privately. We feel them, though the one who caused the pinch may not always be aware we are disappointed or that we've been hurt in some way. Sometimes a pinch can be so subtle that we shrug it off and just try to ignore it. Oh, that's just Todd being Todd as the music director. But the problem with, and we've all seen this, the problem with ignoring pinches is that they can build and build and build. Two, you come to what we call a crunch. And a crunch is an open conflict. Both parties are now aware there is a problem. It'd be the Sunday morning that Todd just loses it with the minister in front of the church. Now, that'll never happen, but sometimes it does. The key to this model is learning to listen to the pinches and checking them out, gathering more information, and with that, clarifying our expectations. The problem, if we don't deal with the pinches and a crunch happens, a crunch is always harder to recover from. So it's important to listen to the pinches and facilitate conversation about the pinches before they become crunches. You see by my diagram there that there's not a lot of happy solutions from a crunch. Whereas if you take a look at the pinch, you listen to it, you work towards work towards a planned reconciliation, and you work at clarifying expectations. Pinches are gifts if we learn how to listen to them. And so I think we're going to turn it over to the role play. Yeah. So over to you, Todd. So
thanks, Rob. So you can stop sharing there, my friend. Thank you. So thanks, Rob. And so we're gonna replay part of the role play that we did earlier. We're going to replay Eun-Joo as the M&P representative and Rob the minister. You remember how it went last time? It wasn't good. It was a broken confidentiality. There was side taking. There wasn't a lot of respect expressed for the musician Todd. And so this time we're going to show you how an M&P chair can do this work in a respectful confidant and a trusting confidant and a trusting or trusted supervisor, helping identify the pinch. And I want to make one comment. Is sometimes we do hear something that's going on between maybe staff in a way that is not formal, not somebody writing a letter and signing their name to it. And I think as M&P committees, we really need to pay attention to those. We really need to pay attention to and check out, because that's usually how pinches are. They're very subtle. You hear some angst in the staff, and it's just to go check out, hey, how are things going? How are things going with you? and just curious, open-minded, not taking a side, but just checking out what's going on. All right, so now we're going to have scene 2 played again, this time with Eun-Joo. We're hoping that Eun-Joo will do better as a trusted confidant. So I'm just going to pin you both, just 1 second. There's Rob and Rob. Rob, where are you? There you are. Okay. Way you go, you two.
You know, Eun-Joo, we just aren't going to have good worship services around here until Todd starts to do his job as music director and lets me do mine. He doesn't understand the needs of this congregation. He wants to do all this new music, and I've been hearing from the congregation that they want to sing songs they know. I'm the one who hears about it when people in the pews aren't happy.
Okay, so tell me a bit more about how you and Todd have been working out the music for worship.
Well, I will often make some suggestions about what hymns I think would go well with my sermon. I think you would agree that that is valid input. But he always bristles when I tell him what would work well. You'd think he would be grateful for my wonderful wisdom and insight.
So the issue is about how music gets picked and what the final choices are. Is that right?
Maybe, but I really think it's more about someone who just doesn't want to cooperate with others. We have to work as a team, and he needs to respect my position as a minister in the church.
Here are the pinches that I heard. Todd, the music director, has in his position description that he chooses the music. The minister, Rob, wants to play a role in what music is chosen for the worship service. Todd does not want that. Minister wants to team with the music director to discuss the larger picture of what's happening in the worship service and within the congregation around the music. And there is resistance from the music director. I want to help Rob and Todd listen to each other with my help so that they can both hear the pinch, and together we can sort to negotiate some new expectations together. Let's move to seeing a meeting with Todd and Rob together. So thank you, Rob and Todd, for coming in to this meeting. I am aware from speaking with both of you that there is some tension in your working relationship, and I hope that we can hear each other today and find a way to resolve the tension. Todd, I want to start with you. Could you describe what you see as the issue and the impact it has had on you?
Well, for me, the issue is that I've been hired by this church to do the music. And I'm proud of the job that I do to lead the music, but I don't feel Rob understands what is in my job description and how hard it is for me to do my job when he wants to choose the music.
No. I don't want to choose the music.
Actually, Rob, I will get to you in a second. But let's just let Todd finish, okay? And so, Todd, what is impact you were feeling from this?
Well, I'm feeling angry. Like Rob doesn't trust me to be able to pick good music, and that I'm supposed to defer to his choices because he's the minister. It's demeaning to me. You know, I trust Rob to do sermons, and I trust him to do pastoral care, and I trust him to be with the church board and to do the sacraments, and he's good at it. And so I wish he would trust me to do what I'm good at.
Okay, thanks, Todd. I hear you saying that you want to be respected for your music expertise and experience and knowledge.
That's right. Exactly. Exactly, Eun-Joo.
Okay, Rob, let's hear from you. Could you describe how you see the issue and how you have been impacted?
Well, as I started to say, I don't want to choose all the music, but I do think we need to work together so that the music and the rest of the worship service are planned together. The issue, you see, for me is that Todd wants to work in a silo, and it's really causing me some anxiety. We need to cooperate as a team. And he needs to know that many congregants aren't happy with some of the music that he picks, especially a lot of the new music. They don't know it, and I'm the one that hears about it.
Sorry, but that's not the message that I'm hearing. People told me that they love the music here. I'm not sure whom you're listening to, Rob, but...
Okay, guys, the people, Rob and Todd, let's stay focused on the issue here. Rob, I hear you saying that for you, the issue is about working together as a minister and music director, and that the impact on you is making you anxious.
Yes, and I'm getting complaints from the congregants about the music. I can't ignore that.
Okay, let's talk about each of your roles and how decisions are made about the music in worship. I think that's where we end our role play. The conversation can go on and on, right?
Okay, so I'm slipping out of the role as a slightly obnoxious minister. And I want to ask, what did you notice? What actions by the gifted and wonderfully articulate M&P chairperson addressed the pinch for you? So what did you notice is the first question.
And raise your hand.
Raise your hand would be great. And the chat, who's monitoring the chat?
I think I am this time.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, okay, Ken.
Well, it seems that the chair certainly took on a different role, and she wanted to mediate between minister and music director. But it still appears from the role playing that was done that there still could be a conflict that has yet been resolved.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Ken. That's true. That's true.
Yeah. And Vicky says patience.
Yeah, I think what Ken said, it's a good point. It's a first try at helping the musician and the minister hear and notice that Eun-Joo asked, what's the issue that from your part, and how is it impacting you? How is it making you feel? And as soon as you help people hear feelings, there is empathy, there is compassion. So I think that what's the issue and how is it impacting you? How is it making you feel? Eun-Joo, I think there's some.
I have a couple more here. Cheryl said to play back the content and emotion of what she heard.
Mm-hmm. This is what I heard. Yeah.
Yeah.
Before
I hear you saying.
Yeah, and okay, Melanie, that's her right.
Yeah, I think it was obviously very effective, just of mirroring what was expressed. But I will say my thought was that one of the things that needed to be acknowledged right at the beginning of the meeting was that in Todd's job description, he is the one to choose the music. And then talk about the trust issue and the possibility of collaborating further. But isn't it our job to be aligned with those job descriptions, and if they're not accurate, to change them?
Excellent. Thank you, Melody. Yeah.
Yeah, Melody, I think you make a really good point, and if I could just
Mhm.
comment on that, because the job description may need to be changed, but also the Rob was expressing the need of seeing the big picture, and so and needing to collaborate. So not taking away the choice of the musician, but having a conversation, wanting a conversation about what's happening in the worship and the larger picture. Yeah. So
I think it's a collaboration piece is a bigger thing. You know, people can say, this is my job description, I'm just gonna stick to it. And this is my job description, I'm gonna stick to it. And if there's no communication, no collaboration, no cooperation between the two, then you will likely have a conflict down the road. And that this is what happened. Yes. And here it says when you started, I think it's directing you, Rob, the minister, when you started to bicker, Eun-Joo mediated and it kept a safe container for each person to speak. So that's good. And I have one more here, a couple more here. Chair identified Pinch and asked if she had the right before proceeding. Good communicating.
checking out. Did I hear you? Did I hear you in what you said? So respecting the person. Yeah.
Is that right? Or did I hear that right? Yeah. So, and refocus then to the real issue. So remember, we said that focus on the issue, not the person. And that's exactly what happened there. The chair was actually listening and asking probing questions, allowing everyone to express themselves, allowing both sides to express themselves. The chair tried to make the two people take turns and be respectful. She had trouble helping the two gentlemen hear one another.
Well, and she did have to work hard. But I like what you're saying there. What Vicky and Catherine are alluding to is giving each person the time to speak and before the other one interjects. I thought that was really helpful. And also open, curious questions. So Eun-Joo wasn't saying, well, this is the way it is, you two, settle down, be professionals. I've heard a lot of M&P committees say that. You guys, you're both professionals. You should be able to figure it out. Well, no, what they need is an open, honest question. What is the issue and how is it impacting you? Curious, open, honestly interested in what's happening, and so forth. So I'm very grateful for those comments.
Yeah, I have a few more here. Since I don't see any raised hands, they have gotten to the point of hearing each other's concerns, but we'll need to move on to discuss what next to deal with the concerns.
That's right. We didn't do the whole conversation. We just got it on the right track.
Yeah. There's no substitute for a good entry plan. Somehow, who does what got missed?
That's getting back to that, rewriting the expectations. Rob had some expectations of what his job in total entailed, and so did Todd. And so the pinch was we had both the same kind of, we needed to renegotiate those expectations.
I have a couple more here. We initiated a suggestion box to be monitored by one person, and angst can be shared and information shared with those involved. The gentleman may be asked how they might go forward.
Yeah, good. It's getting when we're talking about the trusted supervisor, whose issue, what's the issue, and whose issue is it? Who really needs to embrace this? And certainly both these person, the minister and the musician, need to had issues that they wanted to deal with. I mean, one had, it's my job description, it's my job to pick. The minister said yes, but I want a collaborative approach. Those are two different issues, and they needed to be worked through. Yeah, heard and worked through. Okay. Right.
Any other comments, folks? Thank you for, Todd and I and Eun-Joo really have, we wanted to be famous actors. Oh, Tracy, you have a comment.
I will wait for the Oscars, sir.
Yeah. Don't give up my day job is what
That's right.
say.
I have a question with regards to this slide, and I'm hoping it has to do with the production that we just observed, and that's what is premature reconciliation?
Well, any one of my colleagues could answer that. My initial reaction is that, and I am sometimes guilty about this, I will say, yes, I understand, and I will make changes when in actual fact, I haven't actually dealt with how I'm really feeling. And, that sort of, let's get to a quick, easy solution without actually really getting to what might be a deeper issue. That's how I would read that. I don't know whether Todd or Eun-Joo have other.
I would think that superficial reconciliation, I would say that, so on the surface, you think, okay, I'm fine with that. Okay, I'll take that suggestion. But as Rob said, deep down inside of me, that's, really not. So that's what I would say. Yeah.
Thank you. Good. Are there any other questions, folks, like that? Unmute yourself or put it in the chat. Wouldn't it work better with 2 M&P committee members there?
Yeah.
I wonder what the dynamic would be. What do you think, Rob? What would be the dynamic if there were 2 M&P committee members there?
Well, I'm going to defer to Pat because she has her hands up. So we'll start with Pat Emmons. Go ahead, Pat.
I sometimes see this supervisory role of M&P as a very awkward, untenable situation. For example, you could have an extremely well-educated minister with lots of experience in the United Church and possibly older. And then you have in a supervisory role someone who could be much younger, not nearly so well-educated nor well-experienced, and no training in human resources or human relations, and yet they're the supervisor over the minister. That to me is it's almost amazing that we would expect that person to be the supervisor. In business, the boss is clear. He either owns the business or he's up there as chair of the board. But that situation does not occur in our churches. And I see this role of supervisor as something that very few ordinary, everyday lay people in the congregation are prepared to handle.
Yeah, Rob and Pat, I hear you, and I think, and Rob, I'll come back to you. This is part of the thing that we talked about earlier, the difference between church and the corporate world, the hierarchy. But when we talk about supervisor, we're not talking about boss. We're not talking about M&P as saying, well, we're the boss over you. You do what we say or else. We're not talking about that.
What's your definition of supervisor?
I'm coming to that, Pat.
Okay.
And that's the person who listens and who asks open, honest questions and helps suss out how people are feeling and helps people discover what the next steps are, or how what the next a healthy thing would be for the relationship. So it's somebody who comes humbly and asks open and honest questions, not to make ultimatums. I'm just going to hold you, Pat, because I want Rob to come in here too.
Yeah, and I think to the answer to the question, would it have been better to have 2 M&P members? And yes, I think it would be important to have 2. And I think when we are calling folks to be part of the M&P committee, we do need to think about having a good balance, because I think it is important to have, a young, perhaps more naive voice or someone new on the M&P committee that brings kind of is not kind of jaded by the church experience yet, that can bring that perspective. But also we need, in some of the in one of the churches that I serve, we did bring in a professional, someone who had human resource skills as part of our M&P committee. We do have to be, I think, careful with who does get on to our M&P committees. And we are also, as your pastoral relations ministers, are able to resource your team so that you have the skills and the access to the information you need to do the job. But I think it is always good. I think you have to be careful that you don't, okay, then you need a support person for the minister and a support person for Todd, and then you need a support person for the support person, and you end up with 20 people around the table. Like, I think part of the power of this scenario is just getting the 2 conflicted people in the same room and with a facilitator who can actually get at the issues here. And I think so.
And before
Todd,
we get to Ken, I think it's important for you folk to know that, like Pat says, not everyone has the skills to lead that kind of conversation. I mean, I think we all can ask open, honest questions, and it takes practice. But if you're in contact with us as pastoral relations ministers, we can help you find if a conflict if it's getting close to a crunch, we can help you find a mediator, and we can do that. We do that work with congregations. And it's quite amazing. The expectations are renegotiated with the help of a mediator, and things go on in well. So just know that there are resources available to you.
Thanks, Todd. That's helpful. And Ken.
Well, I was going to sort of reiterate and say to Rob, I think you have to be careful if you're doing some conflict resolution that you don't gang up on the issues or the individuals involved. We talked about before, and Eun-Joo mentioned it, you can't deal with the person, you've got to deal with the issue. Mm-hmm. And I think that if you load up M&P, then I think you might not be able to resolve it. And I respect exactly what Pat Edmonds has said, in that, there is the issue, I think, of experience and maturity, and those that have been involved in the United Church and those that have seen conflicts and have been able to resolve them are extremely, successful, and it's been beneficial. But, as our world is changing and our issues are changing, we have to be able to deal with those as we confront them.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
Thanks, Ken. I don't know who's monitoring chat here, but we do have Deanna.
Yeah. So it's also, it's Deanna said that it is also sometimes helpful to say this meeting is the beginning of a problem-solving process. If it's a major problem, it can take more than one meeting. No pressure to solve everything in one meeting. Thank you. Yeah, really sometimes it takes a long time. Yes. And Mary said one facilitator and one note taker become 2 M&P members to debrief together and take back both their perspectives to the rest of the committee.
Great. Good suggestions. Thank you.
Well,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's over. Would you like to introduce me, Rob? You go right ahead.
I was just going to say, it's over to you, Todd. That's all I was
Okay.
going to say. The gifted musician that you are, that makes wise decisions.
Oh my gosh, yes, with the swelled head. Wonderful. Thank you for the participation and for your interest. I do think that M&P is one of the most important ministries in a church. So I'm really grateful for each one of you, and I appreciate. And if you need help, we're here. Before the end of the night, we're going to put our email addresses in the chat, and so that if you're in the north of 407, that's me. You're going to be in touch with me. Rob east of Yonge, south of 407, or west of Yonge, and so south of 407, where Eun-Joo is east of Yonge and south of 407. Maybe we'll all put our email addresses in. But I'm not going to ask you to say anything or to write anything in the chat. I would just like you to think about the description of trusted confidant or trusted supervisor. Which image feels like the best fit for you? You don't have to say anything. You don't have to put anything in the chat. But just sit there and think prayerfully. What image fits you? Trusted confidant. Trusted supervisor. Which image feels like the right fit for you? And look at the word trusted on the beginning of both those words. Trusted, which means reliable, truthful, respectful, dependable, approachable. All those great words you brought earlier. And maybe you can think about going back to your M&P committee and saying, you know what? This is the gift that I can bring. This is the gift that I'd like to bring to our committee from my training that I had on Wednesday night. Ken, you put your hand down.
I did put my hand down. I wasn't sure if it was appropriate to respond into what you suggested about the emails and going out to our pastoral relations individuals. I can't emphasize any more with the involvement that I've had over the years with council, being a chair council, and now stepping into an M&P position, that you cannot be afraid to ask for help. Mm-hmm. That's what the regions are there for. That's the experience they bring. And that's the expertise that you need as a congregation, that if there is an issue, please do not be afraid to ask for help. Because that's why they're there.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you, Ken. Yeah.
That's great. Well, as we're coming to the end, we're just getting close to 9 o'clock. We want to introduce you to an amazing opportunity that has that fits totally what we've been talking about with dealing with issues, some conflict, having those hard but really life-giving conversations. And Eun-Joo, tell these folk about something that's happening next week that they can participate in.
Well, I hope that all of you have received this email about Let's Connect Lay Leaders webinar that we are planning to do on next Thursday, May 23rd. It's called Where Two or Three Are Gathered, There is Jesus and Conflict. The facilitator is Betty Priest. Many United Church ministers have taken courses from her. She does run a conflict management course at what's the school? Just
University of Waterloo.
Yeah, Waterloo. Conrad Grable. Yeah. So she's doing a wonderful coursework there, and I have taken a few courses from her, and she is an amazing person to talk about conflict. So at this particular workshop, she's going to talk about conflict and our understanding of conflict, and good conflict and bad conflict, if there are such a thing as good and bad. But she's going to do that. If you haven't registered for this course yet, you can still do it. I'm going to drop the link in a minute. But we are also recording this workshop as well. So, and then because of the they are going to record it, and they were going to provide it to us only for 2 months. So when the recording is ready, we only have 2 months to listen to it, to watch it. So I want to let you know that.
Thank you, Eun-Joo. Eun-Joo, this is a really unique conversation about, or an opportunity to learn how to have a conversation worth having. And that's what this workshop is about. How do we have those hard conversations? And that's what Betty is really skilled at helping train people. So if you can make it to that May 23rd workshop next week, it'll be an amazing complement to this training night.
Well, thank you, Todd, and thank you, Eun-Joo. I just want to say, someone asked the question, do we have an M&P 102? And I want to say that we do gather M&P, we have M&P check-ins from time to time throughout the year. And our next one is May 29th at 7 o'clock. I think that should be sent out pretty soon. An invitation to that. It may already be sent out. And at those events, we sort of check in what's going on and kind of support each other in some of these conversations, some of these topics that we've been talking. So
when was the next check-in, Rob?
Next check-in is going to be Wednesday, May 29th, and it's at 7 o'clock. And I'm really hoping that has gone out. But I'm away.
We need to talk about, because there will be a town hall meeting about the proposals. So we may want to.
Okay, so we'll have a conversation about that as PRMs. But folks, I think what Rob is saying is that we do have these check-ins quarterly, and if you could talk to we send them to your church office. So if you could please have a conversation with your church office that when they receive anything for M&P, that they forward it to you as a new M&P committee member as well as the other M&P committees. So maybe that could be your number one task tomorrow, is to talk with your church office and find out and ask that anything to do with M&P come to you, because we are constantly sending out these invitations. Rob, back to you, sir.
Anyways, thank you, folks, for, as I said, taking time out of a beautiful evening, I hope. And I hope that you found something in what we've done for you tonight helpful. And you will be sent an evaluation form from our office. And we encourage you to take a few moments to tell us what worked, what didn't work, what are some of other things that we could be adding to this, because we do run this once a year. And so thank you. Thank you for the work that you do. And Todd, you have a way of that we end meetings. So I'm going to turn it over to you to end our meeting.
Oh, okay. Well, folks, how we can end our meeting is that if you would unmute yourself. So all of you unmute yourself, if you could, please. And then when we have a minute, when we're all ready, when I say go, I want you to bless each other. If you can imagine that, and if you look up in the right-hand corner, you'll see view, and click on that and put it in gallery so you can see as many faces as you can. So click on view up in the right-hand corner and click on gallery, and then you'll be able to see as many faces as
If I
you
were
can.
you, I'd go up and pull off all my clothes.
Yeah, don't pull off your clothes, please. And so, in this moment, I'm sure you can think of a blessing that your minister says to you every Sunday. He or she or they say a blessing to you. Maybe you can just say something very simple, but we're going to make this like a cloud of blessing. We're all going to talk together. We're not going to wait for each other. We're going to make it a cloud of blessing for each other, so because we appreciate you and want to go with God's blessings. So let us begin. The Lord
Peace
bless
be
you.
with you.
Be with you.
Peace be with you.
Thanks to everyone.
Thank you so
Lord
much.
bless you and keep you.
Have a good week.
Peace
Peace
bless
be with
bless
you.
everybody.
Peace be with you.
Thank you.
Peace be with you.
Peace be with you.
Bless you all.
And also with you.
Thank you.
Amen.
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 Amen.